middle of the night, and the men asleep in this room are about to be ripped out of their bunks by machine gun fire, explosions, and screaming instructors. And that will be the gentlest thing that happens to them for the next 24 hours. This is the opening minute of Hell Week, the 5.5-day gauntlet at the heart of Navy SEAL training, and widely considered the single hardest test in the entire United States military. We're going to follow these men through just the first 24 hours of it, hour by hour. Because by this time tomorrow, a huge number of them will already be gone. And across the full week, only about 1 in 4 will make it through it all. The ones still standing in the cold will have found out something about themselves that almost no other human being ever will. Stay with me. It begins with a lie of a calm. On Sunday evening, the candidates are brought in, fed, and even allowed to watch a movie. Then they're sent to their cots to sleep, warm, dry, and full. What they don't know is exactly when the week will detonate. It might be 7 in the evening. It might be close to midnight. That not knowing is the very first weapon used against them. And then it comes. The lights are killed. Instructors storm in firing machine guns loaded with blanks, hurling flashbang grenades, blasting sirens and bullhorns, while fire hoses fill the air with freezing mist and smoke chokes the room. They call it breakout, and it's built for exactly one purpose: to drop these men into the pure, disorienting chaos of combat with no warning at all. Within seconds, the order comes. Hit the surf, and they sprint into the black, frigid Pacific. That plunge is, for most of them, the last time they will be warm or dry for 5.5 days. And some men quit right there in the first few minutes, before the real work has even begun. You might wonder why any military would do this to its own people on purpose. The answer is deliberate. Hell Week comes early, in just the 3rd week of training, before the Navy spends a fortune turning a man into a SEAL, because they need to find out now who keeps functioning when he's frozen, exhausted, and surrounded by chaos. The whole idea traces back to the amphibious raiders of World War II, who learned the hard way that real combat is cold, confusing, and brutal, and that the only way to know whether a man can think clearly inside it is to put him there before it counts. Because here's what the movies never quite capture. The enemy in Hell Week isn't the instructors, it's the cold. These men spend the entire week wet, sandy, and freezing. Over and over, they're sent back into the surf zone to lie down in the breaking waves, arms linked, and simply stay there, while the cold ocean pulls the heat straight out of their bodies and the shivering turns into something violent and involuntary. For much of the week, they hover right on the edge of hypothermia, their core temperature sliding lower than the body is ever meant to go. The cold is relentless, and it does something no instructor can. It whispers constantly that all of this could stop right now. Instructors pull the men out of the water just long enough for their bodies to begin recovering, and then send them straight back in. Out here, warmth becomes the cruelest thing in the world, because the instant you feel it, it's taken away again. And they do almost none of it empty-handed. For nearly every event, each boat crew hoists a heavy rubber inflatable boat up onto their heads and carries it everywhere they go. The hull grinds against the same patch of scalp for hours, until the skin there is rubbed raw, and the boat seems to gain weight by the minute as their necks slowly give out. Then there's Log PT, one of the most infamous events in all of SEAL training. Teams of 6 to 8 men shoulder a log the size of a telephone pole, weighing somewhere around 200 pounds. They squat it, press it overhead, and run with it until time loses meaning. And when the arms finally stop working, the log bites down into raw collarbones, held up by nothing but the refusal to be the man who drops it on his crew. And here's the whole philosophy of Hell Week in a single image. If one man stops pulling his share, the log doesn't care. It just gets heavier for everyone else. You don't survive this week as an individual, you survive it as a crew, or you don't survive it at all. And almost everything out here is a race. Boat crews are pitted against each other again and again, and the instructors live by a single phrase: it pays to be a winner. The crew that finishes first might earn a few precious minutes of rest. The crews that lose go again and again. So these men aren't only fighting the cold and the clock, They're fighting not to be the reason their brothers have to do the whole thing a second time. Later in the dark, they paddle those same boats straight into the jagged rocks beneath the Hotel del Coronado, where the surf slams the boats and the men into the stone again and again as they fight to drag everything up and over. And here's the surreal part. Tourists stand behind yellow tape and watch, drinks in hand, just a few feet from one of the most brutal things a human body can be asked to do. But as bad as the cold and the boats and the rocks are, none of them is what actually breaks most of the men who quit. What breaks them is this: quitting is always instantly available. Out on that training ground sits a single brass bell. At any moment, no questions asked, no shame from the instructors. A candidate can walk over, ring that bell 3 times, and it's over. Right then, a hot shower, dry clothes, warm food, and end to the cold the second he rings. The only thing he has to do afterward is set his helmet down in a long, growing row of helmets belonging to everyone who rang it before him. That is the real test. Not whether the week is hard, it's engineered to be nearly impossible, but whether, with relief sitting 30 feet away and screaming his name, a man chooses to stay in the cold. And most of the men who don't make it aren't carried off broken. They quit. Somewhere in the dark, they decide they want the hot shower more than they want to be a SEAL, and they walk over and they ring. To keep them alive through it, they're fed 4 times a day, usually hot meals in unlimited amounts, because warm food is one of the only comforts on offer, and it does as much for the spirit as it does for the body. They burn so many calories that they become human furnaces running on fumes. But there's no real rest in it. Many of them are so wrecked that they fall asleep sitting upright, mid-meal, faces nearly in the tray, only to be hauled up and sent straight back out into the dark. And the body is breaking down the entire time. Skin that's been wet, sandy, and salt burned for days starts to chafe raw and split. Small cuts won't close. Legs and feet swell so badly that some men can barely force their boots on. Every scrape stings with salt water. They are, quite literally, coming apart at the seams and still being told to run. And here's the cruel twist. The medical staff are watching for exactly this. Corpsmen move through the ranks, hunting for the men whose bodies are quietly failing. The swelling, the infections, the first signs of pneumonia. Because a candidate who's genuinely breaking has to be pulled for his own safety. But almost no one wants to be pulled, so they hide it. They walk steady on a leg that's screaming, swallow the cough, cover the wound, because to be dropped by a doctor while your mind and your will are still in the fight is, to these men, the one ending more bitter than ringing the bell yourself. And somewhere in those first 24 hours, running on almost no sleep, the mind itself begins to come apart. Across the entire week, a candidate gets a grand total of about 4 hours of sleep. Not 4 hours a night, 4 hours for the whole 5.5 days. Men start to hallucinate. They see things in the water that aren't there. They hold conversations with people who don't exist. They fall asleep for half a second while still paddling. By now they've been awake and moving, more or less without pause, for nearly a full day. And none of this is theater. The Navy pushes these men right up to the true edge of what a human body can withstand. And in rare, tragic cases, candidates have died reaching for it. Everyone out there knows that. That knowledge is part of what makes choosing to stay so hard. As the sun finally comes up, the survivors are still on their feet, frozen, hallucinating, skin rubbed raw, and far fewer in number than they were the night before. They've made it through the first 24 hours of Hell Week. They're soaked, shaking, and completely spent, and every one of them is thinking the same thing. They just survived the hardest day of their lives. Then an instructor tells them the only truth that matters out here. That was day 1. They have 4.5 more to go.